Nikolas Cruzs' sentencing trial for the Parkland school shooting has concluded. Thursday, jurors recommended Cruzs be sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole for killing 17 people and wounding 17 others on February 14, 2018, at Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School. At least one juror decided that mitigating circumstances exceeded the aggravating ones, including Cruz's cold and calculated demeanor. The verdict comes more than 4 years after Valentine's Day shooting in Parkland, Florida, the deadliest high school shooting in U.S. history, and brings to a close the almost 3-month-long trial. Hello everyone, and welcome to another video. Today we'll be looking at the 10 wildest outbursts in the Parkland Shooter Trial. Yeah, you heard it right. So, let's start our video. Number 1. 17 people killed in Parkland school shooting. Cruzs stated in pre-recorded recordings that he took an Uber to Stoneman Douglas to kill at least 20 people. He killed 17 in less than 6 minutes by sweeping his AR-15 through the hallways of the 1,200 building. Number 2. The judge selected for the Nikolas Cruzs case. Circuit Judge Elizabeth Shearer was thrown into the national spotlight when she was chosen randomly to preside over the trial. On the first day of the jury selection, her exchange with a possible juror who claimed that she could not serve due to obligations to his sugar daddy went viral. Number 3. The prosecutor walks through the attack in the opening statement. On the trial's opening day, prosecutor Michael Satz provided a detailed narrative of Cruz's killing spree, prompting one victim's family member to leave the courtroom in tears. Others shuddered and covered their heads with their hands. The gunman was indecipherable. Number 4. Parkland survivors testify about the horrors of the attack. By the conclusion of the first week, jurors had reportedly heard the account of gunfire and bloodshed. Each story was delivered from a different perspective: a teacher rushing to lock his door, a student covering herself with textbooks, but the majority began similarly. According to them, Valentine's Day was quite routine. Number 5. Juror tours the crime scene at the Stoneman Douglas building. While the bodies of Cruz's victims no longer lined the hallways of the Stoneman Douglas freshman building, almost everything remained unchanged. On August 4th, the jury visited the crime scene and returned to the courtroom with stone faces. Number 6. Parkland victims' families share their continued pain. The brothers Amato Pollock battle with survivor's guilt. Elena Petty's sister does not believe that she'll ever truly love again, and Joaquin Oliver's death has hardened his mother's grin. Parkland's wounds have not healed over time. During the third week of the trial, as victims' families testify before the jury, each was on exhibit. Number 7. Cruz's attorneys call first witnesses. Cruz's defense enlisted witnesses with intimate knowledge of the shooter's disturbing background to persuade the jury that Cruz's route to murdering 17 people began long before the day of the massacre. He was poisoned in the womb, said lead attorney Melissa McNeil. Because of this, his brain was irreparably damaged without his own fault. Number 8. Tensions rise as defense rests Parkland shooter's case in a surprise move. On September 14th, defense attorneys for the Parkland shooter rested their case, resulting in a yelling match between the judge and defense attorneys. The announcement marked a shocking and abrupt conclusion to Cruz's 3-week defense, which was anticipated to include the testimony of over 40 additional witnesses, including Cruz's brother, Zachary Cruzs. Number 9. Closing arguments and deliberation begins. Tuesday saw the prosecution and defense make their closing arguments. The state urged jurors to impose the death penalty on Cruzs, while his public defenders pleaded for clemency, claiming the shooter was destined from birth. A panel of 7 men and 5 women has 2 options: the death penalty or life without parole in jail. If the jury recommends death, Judge Elizabeth Shearer may follow the recommendation or sentence the defendant to life in prison. Number 10. Juror recommends life in prison to Parkland shooter. The panel of 7 men and 5 women pondered for over a day before submitting the recommendation. As Circuit Judge Elizabeth Shearer read the recommendation, victims' relatives in the courtroom gallery grumbled, shook their heads, or held them in their hands. State and local officials react. There are crimes for which the only just penalty is death. Democratic gubernatorial candidate Charlie Crist tweeted, "The Parkland families and community deserve that degree of justice. I will continue to pray for healing for the families and every person impacted by this tragedy." Arnett Tadeo, the Democratic nominee for the 27th Congressional District of Florida, posted on Twitter, "Prayers this morning to every family affected by the Parkland tragedy. Many have become close friends throughout this process, and I will always stand with you." Meanwhile, U.S. Senator Rick Scott tweeted, "While I have faith in our justice system, today's decision is not what many of us expected. I can only pray that as each phase of this painful process concludes, those whose hearts were torn by this monster find some measure of closure, and that our Heavenly Father delivers them to the peace, knowing that they'll one day be reunited in His kingdom with those we so tragically lost." Governor Ron DeSantis expressed his displeasure at the verdict, stating that he believed only the death penalty was appropriate. The governor also voiced his frustration over how long it took to get to this point. They used to do this, he would have been executed in 6 months. He's liable. Everybody knew that from the beginning, and yet it takes years and years in this legal system that is not serving the best interest of the victims. In her acceptance of the jury's recommendation, Broward County Public Schools Superintendent Dr. Vicki L. Cartwright stated that more mental health personnel are being dispatched to every school in the district and are on standby to assist anyone in need. Our district understands that the jury's recommendation in the sentencing phase of this trial will impact our students, staff, families, and the entire community, Cartwright said in a statement. Students, families, and community members can access mental health resources online according to the school district. And that's all for today's video. What are your thoughts on this? Let me know in the comment section down below. I hope that you found this video interesting, and if you want to see more videos like this, please consider subscribing to my channel. See you in the following video with some more of the latest updates, and until then, stay tuned.